Hello and welcome to the Let's Talk Fraud Show, a podcast highlighting everything you need to know to fight fraud. My name is Soltan Hassanieh, and I use my experience as an internal auditor and my knowledge as a certified fraud examiner to spread awareness, helping you detect frauds and stop fraudsters. Thank you for joining us today. Hi there! Welcome to another episode of the Let's Talk Fraud podcast. Maybe for some, fraud is just a crime that does not sound very bad, because it doesn't involve violence, like those we see on TV shows or movies. So some people ask me, why should we pay any attention to it? It is just about losing money. After all, that's the whole story. Nothing is major. And those same people just say that your health is worth much more than money. Well, the truth is that fraud can destroy people's lives. On this podcast, we are going to show you how normal people have lost so much money, leading some cases even get suicidal. Imagine your golden years having worked so hard your whole life building up your savings, and in a blink of an eye, having it ripped away from you. Never to be recovered, killing your dreams and destroying your future. Trust me, it may be a silent crime, but still, it can be fatal. During my career, I have seen and heard many of these heartbreaking stories, and this podcast is created because I don't want it to happen to you. Stay tuned. In this episode, we'll be talking more about the dating and romance scam, and after that, we'll be listening to your stories with fraud. Today, we will be spicing it with some love. We all have been in a relationship, and it is becoming now easier using those dating apps. Well, the bad news is that fraudsters would love to create fake identities over those apps. I think you got what fraud scheme I'm gonna discuss today. Romance scams. Let us start by defining it. Dating and romance frauds often take place through online dating apps and websites. But scammers may also use social media or email to make contact. They might even call their victims as a first introduction. Such scams are also known as catfishing. Okay, so how do they do that? Scammers typically create fake online profiles designed to lure you in. They may use a fictional name or falsify take on the identities of real, trusted people. Those scammers are pros in playing your emotions in a relatively short period of time, and will suggest moving to the relationship away from the dating app or website and take it to a more private channel, such as the phone, email, or an instant messenger. They may claim to be from Australia or another Western country. They are traveling there and they work overseas. Scammers will go to great lengths to gain your interest and trust, such as showering you with loving words, sharing personal information, and even sending you gifts. They may take months to build what may feel like a romance of a lifetime, and may even pretend to book flights to visit you, but never actually come. Once they have gained your trust and your defenses are down, they will ask you, directly or indirectly, for money, gifts, or will ask you for your banking and credit card details. They may also ask you to send them pictures or videos of yourself, possibly of an intimate nature. Back to the money thing, often the scammers would pretend to need the money for some of a personal emergency. For example, they may claim to have a severely ill family member who requires immediate medical attention, such as an expensive operation, or they may claim financial hardship due to an unfortunate run of bad luck, such as a failed business. And they may claim they want to travel to visit you, but can't afford it unless you can lend them some money to cover the flight and other travel expenses. Sometimes the scammers will send you the valuable items, such as laptop computers and mobile phones, and ask you to resend them somewhere. They will invent some reasons why they need you to send those goods, but this is just a way for them to cover up their criminal activity. Alternatively, they may ask you to buy the goods yourself and send them somewhere. You might even be asked to accept money into your bank account and then transfer it to someone else. Here, I'd like to warn you, the above scenario are just likely to be a form of a money laundering, which is a criminal offense. So, never agree to transfer money for someone else. Keep your eyes open. They are so creative and snaky at the same time. So what are the warning signs? You need to keep an eye open on the following red flags. Number 1, when you meet someone online and after just a few contacts, he or she directly expresses strong feelings to you and will ask you to chat with them privately. Second, on their profile of the dating app or website or their social media pages like Facebook are inconsistent with what they tell you. For example, their profile picture looks different from the descriptions of themselves, or they say they are university educated but their English is poor. Third, after gaining your trust, often waiting for weeks and months or even years, they will tell you an elaborate story and ask for money, gifts, or your bank account or credit card details. Fourth, their messages are often poorly written, vague, and escalate quickly from introduction to love. Number 5. If you don't send money straight away, their messages and calls become more desperate, persistent, or direct. If you do send money, they continue to ask you to send more. Last but not least, they do not keep their promises and always have an excuse for why they can't travel to meet you and why they always need more money. We will be giving you tips on how to protect yourself by the end of the podcast, so don't miss that. Like what you hear so far? Make sure you never miss the show by clicking the subscribe button now. This podcast is made possible by listeners like you. Thank you for the support. Now back to the show. Have you ever been a victim of fraud? Unfortunately, many of us have. We have talked a lot about protecting your personal information, but there is no end to how diligent you need to be. More than 50% of the identity theft victims were also the victims of credit card frauds. It's not only the financial loss for those victims, but also the headache it comes with and the time spent to resolve the issues relating to identity theft. You need to be careful about whom you give your personal information to. So make sure you receive your new credit cards and checkbooks and bank statements, and if you don't receive them, follow up with your bank right away or call your post office to check what's happening. If you have not received your bills for an unusual amount of time, press the panic button, and because that's a sign. In the following segment, we will hear more about your personal stories with fraud.
Basically, 3 years ago, I moved to Canada and I brought my husband over. And we had hired an immigration consultant to do the paperwork. And we ended up paying about over $7,000 at the end of the day. The paperwork wasn't even submitted. That caused delay of 8 months, and we had to hire another immigration lawyer who finalized the process within 3 months, and that was it. The only thing I can say is before you deal with any type of immigration consultants, you need to check with an immigration lawyer and you have to do the proper due diligence before hiring anybody to take on something like this. The issue is that those immigration consultants are not regulated, and thus they take advantage of people who don't know the system and who are very vulnerable.
I signed up for a 1-year gym membership for a gym that's under construction, which was going to open in 4 months, and they offered me a very attractive price. I paid them like $450. After a while, I got this very weird feeling, and I knew something was wrong, where after a month or so, and I tried to get my money back, but they told me to contact them back later, and I didn't get any receipt for the amount I paid. It made me sick, like it was horrible. $450 might seem not that much for some, but for me as a student, it was a lot and I was screwed. If you want to put your money into something like that, do your research. Make sure it's a solid thing, not just mirage.
I would like to thank our guests for sharing their stories. Such stories might prevent someone else from falling for the same scam. It's all about prevention. I have a couple of tips for you. How can you protect yourself from a romance and a dating scam? First, always consider the possibility that the approach may be a fraud. Second, try to remove the emotions from your decision making, no matter how caring or persisting the prospective partner is. Third, do an image search for your admirer to help determine if they are who they say they are. You can use image search services such as Google or TinEye. Be alert to the things like spelling and grammar mistakes, inconsistencies in their stories, and other signs that is just a scam, like their camera never working if you want to Skype with them. Fifth, be cautious when sharing personal pictures or videos with prospective partners, especially if you have never met them before. Scammers are known to be blackmailing their targets using compromising materials. Never send money or give credit card details, online account details, or copies of your most important personal documents to anyone you don't know or trust. Be very careful about how much personal information you share on social media platforms. Scammers can use those information and pictures to create fake identities or to target you with a scam. Thank you for listening to the Let's Talk Fraud podcast. Before we go, show some love for your favorite podcast by leaving us a review, and don't forget to follow me on social media platforms listed in the description. Stay tuned for next week's episode, and don't forget, where there is a human, there is a fraud.